The recording was dated November 4th, 1989. Mara Venn was born in 1991. Her voice is audible on the first 17 seconds. This discrepancy was not discovered at Saint Orison Hospital. It was found 3 weeks later in a municipal archive on a quarter-inch reel labeled Final Evacuation. Do not duplicate. The tape smelled of vinegar and old dust when Mara opened its case. Its brown surface had blistered along the edges. Under laboratory headphones, beneath a bed of electrical hiss, a child asked, "Are you still there?" Mara identified the voice as her own before the sentence finished. The archive had hired Mara because Saint Orison's audio records were considered unrecoverable. The hospital had been abandoned after an evacuation in 1989, when a power failure sealed 3 floors and contaminated the ventilation system. No bodies were officially recorded. No final patient list survived. The only material recovered since then had come from unauthorized visitors, including a damaged analog camera and a report describing a rusted payphone that rang without a connected line. Mara requested access at 6:40 on a Tuesday. The request was approved automatically at 6:41. At 7:18, she parked beside the hospital's collapsed ambulance bay. Rain pressed silver lines across the windshield. The building rose beyond it. 9 stories of black windows and concrete stained the color of weak tea. When Mara opened the car door, cold water struck her hands. The air carried wet iron, mold, and the faint medicinal sweetness of disinfectant, although the nearest functioning clinic was 12 miles away. Her equipment case contained a portable recorder, 2 microphones, a headlamp, and a monitor sealed in plastic. She left her phone in the glove compartment. The hospital's entrance stood unlocked behind a chain that had been cut recently. That detail was entered into her field report before she crossed the threshold. Inside, the rain vanished. The silence did not. Water dripped somewhere beneath the floor, each drop separated by exactly 4 seconds. Mara's shoes pressed grit into the tile. A reception monitor flickered behind the desk, displaying a gray horizontal line and a time code that advanced backward. 7:19, 7:18, 7:17. She touched the casing. It was warm. On the desk, beside a dry stack of admission forms, lay a cassette envelope bearing her archive number. Mara did not remove it immediately. The paper had been folded around something heavy, and a dark crescent of moisture marked its center. Her gloved fingers opened the flap. Inside was a key stamped B12 and a handwritten instruction in block capitals. Restore the last minute before entry. The handwriting matched Mara's laboratory notes. She compared the letters twice, then placed the envelope in her evidence bag. The plastic crackled loudly in the reception hall. From somewhere beyond the corridor, a telephone began to ring. It was the payphone mentioned in the earlier recovery report. Mara followed the sound past rooms with their doors removed, past wheelchairs furred with gray dust, past a children's mural whose painted faces had been scraped blank. The ringing stopped whenever she stopped walking. It resumed when she moved. The phone hung beneath a rusted metal hood at the end of the corridor. Its receiver swung gently, striking the housing with a dull, measured knock. Mara lifted it. Static filled her left ear, warm and granular, like breath against cloth. Then the hospital's public address system activated. "Mara Venn," said a woman's voice. "You are late." Mara looked at the empty corridor. The monitor behind reception flashed once, and the time code stopped at 6:12. The voice spoke again, now from the receiver. "Elias is waiting in room B12. The key in Mara's evidence bag turned by itself. Mara did not enter room B12 immediately. The key had stopped turning, its teeth still pressed against her palm, while the receiver continued to hiss beside her. The corridor smelled of wet plaster, iodine, and dust warmed by hidden pipes. On the monitor behind reception, the frozen time code remained 612. A second line appeared beneath it. B12, occupied. Mara lowered the receiver. The woman's voice did not come from the speaker now. It came from the ceiling grill above her, thin and close enough to raise the hair along her neck. Do not bring the key inside. She looked at the brass key. Black residue had gathered in the grooves, as if it had been pulled from burned paper. Mara placed it on the floor and stepped toward room B12. The ringing began again behind her. 3 measured strikes from the payphone, then silence. When she turned, the key was no longer on the floor. The door to B12 stood open by less than an inch. Mara pushed it with 2 fingers. The hinges gave a dry metallic cough. Inside, a bed frame leaned against the wall beneath a cracked observation window. The mattress had been removed, but its rectangular outline remained in gray dust. A portable analog camera rested on the floor near the drain, its lens pointed toward the doorway. Red tape marked the casing. Evidence Unit 04. Mara recognized the tape. It had been applied by the recovery team that entered Saint Orison 9 years earlier. Their final report stated that Unit 04 had been destroyed in a fire inside the anechoic booth. The report included a photograph of the melted casing. She crouched without touching it. The camera's indicator light was on, its motor engaged. The tiny reels began turning, drawing a soft mechanical rhythm through the room. Mara took her field recorder from her coat and placed it on the floor. The air near the camera felt colder than the corridor, and every breath tasted of copper. A voice emerged from the camera speaker. Evacuation recording, Saint Orison Hospital, Ward B. Date unavailable. The voice was hers. Mara's hand tightened around the recorder until the plastic edge cut into her thumb. On the tape, a child cried somewhere beyond a wall. Metal wheels rattled over tile. Then a younger Mara spoke, her voice hoarse from shouting. "Elias, keep your eyes closed. They cannot find you if you stay quiet." The recording stopped. For several seconds, only the camera motor continued. Then another voice entered the track, older, calm, and unmistakably Elias's. "You told them I was dead." Mara backed into the door. The wood struck her spine, and dust slid from the frame onto her collar. She reached for the handle, but the corridor beyond had changed. The reception desk was gone. In its place stood a row of hospital chairs, each occupied by a person facing the wall. The monitor flickered. 613. B12. 2 patients present. The door began closing against Mara's hand. From inside the room, the camera recorded one final sound: a child unlocking the door from the other side. The recovered tape resumes at 614. The camera lies on its side, its lens pressed against gray linoleum. Mara's breathing is close to the microphone. Dust moves through the beam of a fluorescent tube, although the fixture has no visible power cable. Behind her, the door stands open. Beyond it is not the corridor, but a narrow records office smelling of wet plaster, iodine, and paper left in a basement. Mara lifts the camera and wipes grit from the lens with her sleeve. The monitor above the doorway reads B12. 1 patient present. She does not speak. Her left hand remains clamped around the brass key found beside Elias's camera. The teeth have cut 4 red marks into her palm. On the desk, An intake ledger lies open beneath a layer of ash. Its pages are dry, but the edges drip steadily onto the floor. Mara places the key beside the book and photographs the first visible entry with the analog camera. The image develops inside the viewfinder before the shutter has finished clicking. Patient. Venn. Mara age. 8 status. Transferred destination. Anechoic observation. The line beneath it has been crossed out so many times that the paper has split. Mara turns the page. A second entry lists Elias Venn, age 11, admitted during the evacuation at 6:13. His status is marked deceased. The ink is fresh enough to shine. Beneath the word is a handwritten note in Mara's adult handwriting. Do not let him answer the telephone. The rusted payphone rings from the far side of the office. Mara steps backward. Her shoulder strikes a filing cabinet, and a warm current of air rolls across her neck, carrying the smell of copper and old hospital soap. The ringing stops after 3 pulses. A mechanical click follows. The receiver has lifted itself from the cradle. No, Mara says. The voice on the line is Elias's, but the recording contains a second layer beneath it. A child counting in a language that cannot be identified. You left before they finished recording you. Mara grips the receiver without raising it to her ear. The plastic is cold enough to numb her fingertips. I came back. Pause. Paper rustles on the line. You came back every time. The statement remains unverified. However, the tape contains 11 separate door entry sounds, each followed by Mara's breathing at a different age. In one recording, she is 8. In another, her voice is 34. The final entry is dated 3 minutes after the camera was activated. Mara drops the receiver. It swings against the cabinet, striking metal in a steady rhythm. The impact exposes a concealed drawer beneath the desk. Inside is a cassette labeled Final Discharge, along with a hospital wristband bearing her name. The plastic has yellowed, but the adhesive remains wet. She inserts the cassette into the camera side compartment because no other player is present. Static fills the office. Then a woman speaks from inside the anechoic cabin, her voice flattened by insulation. Patient Venn refuses to identify the person in the chair. A chair scrapes across the floor. Mara moves toward the sound. The office wall has opened into a black observation window. Behind the glass, a figure sits beneath a white sheet. The monitor changes before she can reach it. B12, 2 patients present. The covered figure raises one hand and points toward the camera. From inside the cassette, Mara's own child voice begins to scream. Mara stopped the cassette by pressing the eject lever with both hands. The tape continued turning for 3 seconds, producing the dry click of an empty reel. Then it expelled itself. The office smelled of hot dust and old disinfectant. Behind the observation glass, the covered figure remained seated, one hand still raised toward the camera. The monitor displayed a new entry beneath B12. Patient Venn, returned for identification. Witness, Mara Venn. Status, refuses consolidation. Mara wiped the screen with her sleeve. The letters remained beneath the glass, not on it. A thin line of condensation formed around the word returned, as if the monitor were breathing through its casing. She opened the nearest drawer. Inside were evidence envelopes arranged by date, their paper swollen from dampness. The first carried a recovery report signed by D. Vale, the technician who had entered Saint Orison 11 years earlier and failed to leave with the rest of his crew. His final note contained only one sentence. The building supplies a different childhood for every person who opens the door. Underneath it, Mara found a photograph of the anechoic cabin. The image showed the white chair, the observation window, and a small child standing in the corner with her back turned. The child wore a hospital wristband. The printed date was 26 years old. Mara held the photograph close to the camera lens. The child's hair matched the uneven cut Elias had worn during the evacuation. A dark stain covered the face, but the left hand was visible. 2 fingers were bent inward, exactly as Elias's had been after the fracture in room 3. The rusted payphone rang outside the office. His bell struck once, then again. Mara carried the camera into the corridor. The fluorescent tubes above her flickered in sequence, illuminating wet footprints that began at the office threshold and ended beneath the payphone. No water dripped from the ceiling. The receiver's black plastic was cold enough to numb her fingertips. She lifted it. A recording played through the line, damaged by layers of static. Her mother's voice identified the evacuation route. A child cried in the background. Then Mara heard herself, younger and breathless, saying, "Elias is still in there." The line clicked. A second voice answered from the same receiver. "You said that before." Mara dropped the handset. It swung against the metal casing, and each impact produced a hollow tone that continued inside the camera microphone. She turned toward the corridor. The observation window was no longer behind her. It had appeared at the far end, opening into the anechoic cabin. The covered figure stood inside it now. The sheet hung from a narrow frame, empty from the shoulders down. Beneath the fabric, a child's hand pressed against the chest. On the monitor beside the window, the image from Mara's camera appeared in real time. In the display, she was not holding the camera. She was seated beneath the sheet. The cassette recorder activated inside her bag. Her adult voice spoke through the corridor speakers, calm and official. "Patient Venn has completed return." The cabin door unlocked. At the same moment, the hospital's fire alarm began recording her name. The fire alarm repeated Mara's name through every corridor, each syllable arriving from a different speaker. The sound was thin, metallic, and slightly delayed, as if the building were learning how to pronounce her. Smoke did not appear. Instead, the air grew hot and tasted of pennies. Mara pulled the cassette recorder from her bag. Its reels turned without tape inside. A printed evacuation notice lay beneath the recorder. The paper was dry despite the damp floor, and its edges had been handled until they became black. Saint Orison Hospital, Pediatric Wing, 1989. At the bottom, beneath the signatures of 3 nurses, someone had added one handwritten line. Patient Venn was not removed. Mara pressed her thumb against the ink. It smeared across her skin, still wet. The corridor lights came on in sequence, leading away from the unlocked cabin. Mara followed because the alarm stopped whenever she stood still. Each bulb illuminated a different object. A rusted wheelchair, a child's red shoe, the cracked monitor from the observation room. On the monitor, her camera showed an empty corridor. The image moved ahead of her by several seconds. When Mara lifted her hand, the woman on the screen lowered hers. The rusted payphone began ringing behind her. She turned slowly. The receiver hung from its cord, swinging over the stained tile. The ringing continued until she picked it up. Cold plastic pressed into her ear. Under the static, a boy was breathing through a cloth. "Mara," he said. Her fingers tightened around the receiver. "Identify yourself." The boy inhaled again. Somewhere near him, a metal bed rolled across a floor. "You said you would come back before the lights went out." The line clicked dead. Mara kept the receiver against her ear while the empty hospital returned a faint echo of her own breathing. Then the payphone printed a narrow strip of paper from its coin slot. It contained a timestamp, 21 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds. Beneath it was Mara's adult voice, recorded in clean forensic diction. Elias Venn, age 7. No pulse detected. The strip continued feeding from the machine. Witness, Mara Venn, age 9. She tore the paper free. The remaining length dragged downward, disappearing beneath the phone into the wall. A door opened at the far end of the corridor. Warm air moved through the hospital, carrying disinfectant, wet wool, and the sweet odor of apples left too long in a cupboard. Beyond the doorway stood a records room lined with metal drawers. Every drawer had been pulled open except one. Its label read Venn, Mara, returned materials. Inside lay a school photograph, a driver's license, and a funeral program for a child named Elias. The photograph showed Mara at 9 years old, standing beside the hospital's ambulance entrance. Her left hand was raised toward the camera. Behind her, through the glass doors, a second Mara watched from inside. The monitor behind her flickered. A new image appeared. The anechoic cabin viewed from above. The sheet-covered figure sat beneath the microphone. Beside it, an empty chair had been labeled with Mara's name. The cabin door locked again. On the monitor, the chair began to turn toward the camera. The chair completed its turn with a dry scrape against the cabin floor. Mara's name remained printed on the seat, but the camera showed no one sitting there. The microphone swayed above it, its cable tapping the wall in a steady rhythm. Through the monitor speaker came a recording of Mara breathing, though her mouth was closed and her chest had stopped moving. The file metadata displayed a date 11 years before her birth. Mara placed both hands against the monitor casing. Cold metal pressed through her gloves. "That date is wrong," she said, and the speaker answered in her own voice, flatter and older. "Correction accepted." The hospital lights dimmed in sequence beyond the records room, each fluorescent tube dying toward the corridor where the rusted payphone stood. Then the payphone rang once, although its receiver had been removed. She followed the sound because the monitor had begun displaying a waveform from the telephone line. The waveform contained 3 voices layered beneath the static. Elias calling for help, a child reciting Mara's address, and an unidentified woman repeating the same sentence at 6-second intervals. Mara lifted the receiver from its cradle. The metal was warm, and the stale smell of burnt dust came through the mouthpiece. "Saint Orison Archive," said the woman. "State the name of the returning subject." Mara's fingers tightened around the cord. "Mara Venn." The line clicked. A printer inside the records room began operating, its rollers grinding over paper. By the time Mara returned, one page had emerged. It was a transfer form bearing her adult signature, dated the night of the evacuation. Under destination, the form listed anechoic cabin. Under condition upon arrival, responsive memory. Under accompanying person, Elias Venn. The document was damp at the edges, as if it had been lifted from water. Mara read the final line 3 times. No departure authorization was recorded. No ambulance number appeared. Her driver's license, found in the drawer, had been filed as returned material because the institution had never issued it to her. The photograph had not shown Mara outside the hospital. It had shown the hospital retaining her image. The monitor changed before she could turn away. The empty chair now contained a small figure in a hospital gown. The child's face remained obscured by the white sheet, but one bare foot touched the floor. A second chair appeared beside it. Its label read Elias. Beneath the image, the system generated a caption from the audio. Subjects must be seated to continue recording. Mara backed into the cabinet. The drawers shuddered around her, releasing the smell of mildew and old antiseptic. From the cabin speaker came a child's voice, close enough to touch. "You said you would come back." The corridor lights returned behind Mara, illuminating a trail of wet footprints leading from the anechoic cabin to the records room. The prints were small at first. Then they matched the length of Mara's feet. Her own voice entered the monitor feed, calm and official. Final recording begins when both subjects recognize the room. The cabin door unlocked. Inside, the second chair was no longer empty. The camera above the cabin door rotated without power. Its lens clicked into focus on Mara's face, then on the second chair. The red recording lamp remained dark, but the monitor displayed a timestamp from 31 years earlier. Mara's name appeared beneath it in block letters. The date matched the hospital evacuation. Below her name was another entry. Elias Venn. Status returned. The paper feed began moving. Mara tore the strip from the machine. The paper was warm and damp, carrying the odor of burnt dust and antiseptic. 3 lines had printed beneath the entry. Subjects seated. Subjects identified. Memory transfer complete. Her fingers tightened until the paper cut her skin. From inside the cabin, Elias tapped once against the glass. Then the rusted payphone in the corridor rang. She crossed to it because the ringing continued through the monitor speaker, each pulse synchronized with the lights. The receiver was cold enough to numb her palm. Static filled the line, followed by a man reading from a case file. His voice was unfamiliar, but the breathing between words belonged to Mara. Patient Elias Venn located in Ward C. Sister remained in evacuation corridor. Patient requested that recording continue. Mara pressed the receiver against her ear. "Who is speaking?" The voice stopped. A second voice answered from the cabin speaker, older, restrained, and unmistakably hers. "Do not let her leave before recognition." The payphone cord pulled tight toward the anechoic cabin. Its copper wires slid from the wall without snapping, dragging the black receiver across the floor. Mara followed the movement until the cord disappeared beneath the cabin door. On the monitor, a new image replaced the corridor. A hospital room with peeling green paint, 2 narrow beds, and a child sitting upright beneath a gray blanket. Mara recognized the room before the image showed her in it. The bed nearest the window held Elias, 7 years old, his mouth open around a breathing tube. The second bed was empty except for a paper wristband. The camera angle shifted. A smaller Mara entered the frame, carrying the same red coat she had worn during the evacuation. She did not run. She walked to the empty bed, placed the coat on it, and closed the curtain. The footage continued beyond the memory she had preserved. Adult Mara appeared beside the bed, unchanged, holding a restoration headset. She leaned toward Elias and adjusted the microphone at his throat. The child looked directly into the camera. "Tell her she came back," he said. The monitor cracked from corner to corner. Every corridor light switched on, revealing identical wet footprints leading from the cabin to the records room, then back again. The hospital speakers activated in sequence. Voices from previous files spoke over one another. A surveyor, a missing nurse, a man who had called the payphone for 11 minutes. Each voice ended with the same administrative phrase. Subject recognized. Mara stepped backward. The second chair scraped across the cabin floor and stopped against the glass. This label had changed. Elias was gone. In its place, a fresh metal plate reflected her face. Mara Venn. The door opened. Inside, Elias waited in the first chair, older only in the way recorded voices become older. He held the final paper strip between two fingers. "Sit down," he said. "The evacuation is still recording." The final recovered segment begins with Mara standing beside the second chair. Rain struck the hospital windows in a steady, granular pattern, though every pane had been sealed from the inside. The cabin smelled of wet plaster and overheated wiring. Elias remained seated behind the glass, his face pale beneath the monitor's blue light, the paper strip pinched between two fingers. Mara reached for it. The paper was warm, as if it had been held against skin. One line had been typed across it. Arrival confirmed, Mara Venn, age 7. Beneath the words, a child's handwriting pressed through the fibers. Elias released the strip only when her fingers touched his. "You kept looking for the wrong exit," he said. His voice came through the cabin speaker and from the rusted payphone in the corridor simultaneously. The two transmissions were separated by 31 years of static. Mara turned toward the glass. Her reflection did not move with her. It remained facing Elias, one hand raised against the window. The monitor displayed the evacuation record. Patient 014 had entered Saint Orison Hospital at 1842 during the fire alarm. Patient 014 had never been discharged. The record contained no name until Mara's forensic restoration files were attached. Every recording she had repaired, every missing voice she had identified, had supplied another portion of the patient's identity. A childhood audio fragment played beneath the report. Smoke alarms screamed. Shoes struck linoleum. A girl sobbed beside a hospital bed. "Mara, don't let go." The girl answered, "I'm coming back." The voice belonged to Mara. The second voice belonged to Elias. No adult evacuation followed. There was only the closing of a metal door, then the same sentence repeated in progressively older voices. "The evacuation is still recording." Mara pressed both palms against the glass. Cold traveled through her wrists. Behind her, the corridor lights illuminated wet footprints that began at the cabin and ended at her own shoes. The hospital speakers activated, one room at a time, replaying her apartment, her university, the forensic laboratory, each location rendered in the acoustics of Saint Orison. Elias rose from the chair. His knees did not bend. "The life outside was the memory," he said. "This is what remembered it." The cabin door unlocked. Beyond it stood the pediatric ward, untouched by fire, with a small girl sitting beside an empty bed. She lifted her head. The hospital microphone captured Mara's adult voice before Mara spoke. "Elias, don't let go." The girl reached for the door. Then the evacuation alarm announced a new patient entering the building, and the recording assigned Mara's name to the voice.